This episode of Headlock Talk is brought to you by Austin-based company Naturally Hemp's and their new line of CBD gummies. These gummies are made with 100% baked-in, pharmaceutical-grade, non-isolate-based CBD. What we're talking about here is the entourage effect. The entourage effect refers to the stronger effect you get when combining multiple cannabinoids together, as opposed to just CBD. Full-spectrum CBD, or CBD distillate, tends to be more potent and lasts longer, which is what we're talking about here. Unlike some other brands that use a spray-on CBD, Naturally Hemp CBD distillate is baked in, so you know you're getting the full dose with each gummy. I personally use them for all kinds of things, like sleep aid or muscle pain. And did I mention they taste great? They got 5 flavors, strawberry, green apple, lemon lime, watermelon, and get this, the orange flavor has vitamin C in it. Ooh. So, if this sounds like something you could go for, head over to your nearest Create a Sig vape shop and pick yours up today to see for yourself the difference Naturally Hemp's gummies can make in your life.
On the series finale of Headlock Talk, I'm joined by 3 very special guests as we discuss probably one of the most important wrestling events of all time, and that is really the birth of AEW. Okay, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of Headlock Talk. I am, of course, the Texas gentleman Tanner Pruitt, and along with me here, not just one, not just 2, but I've got 3, count them, 3 lovely guests today, 2 of which are making their debut. So we've got a 4 horseman stable of sorts here today, of content creators. I'll go in the round here. You know him, you love him, you've heard of him. He makes really inappropriate jokes on this show. He's almost gotten me canceled a number of times. My partner for Radio Techers, Mags. Mags, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm the Paul Roma of this podcast.
a title not given lightly. Next to Mags here, in the rotation, a man who, again, is making his Headlock Talk debut, surprisingly. He has been featured on Headlock Talk, on at least a few occasions, if I'm not mistaken. But I've wanted to have him on the show for years, literally years, and finally got it to happen right here. Conrad from Everything Pro Wrestling, how are you doing today?
Tanner, thank you so much. Yeah, we've tried this for a long time. I think you appeared on mine once. Yeah, we just have scheduling conflicts, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that New York versus Texas thing, but we're all right. I'm glad we're getting to do it now.
It's better late than never.
So basically, you had to cancel your show to get him on. Like, all right, yeah, come on.
Oh, goodness. And then to Conrad's left here, as far as the screens are concerned, another man who I've long been inspired by and wanted to have on my show. You know him, you love him. Canada's own favorite son, the one and the only Mr. Warren Hayes. Warren, welcome.
Thank you, Tanner. I'm so sorry that I inspired you, because then you'd be doing things right. If I didn't, I'm deeply apologetic. Thank you for the welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I mean, again, another guy popping up. You know, as the show's going, as your show's disappearing. You know, I kind of enjoy that. I kind of enjoy the fact that, you know, I'm just watching everything circling the drain. You know, it's interesting.
Well, this is actually going to be the final episode. I didn't tell you guys that either, but this will be the closer. So again, I wouldn't have it any other way here than the 4 of us to sit and chat, really about something that is quite organic, something that really never was supposed to happen, maybe even never should have happened, but it happened. And the story of All Elite Wrestling is thoroughly enjoyable. I think I actually enjoyed the story of AEW becoming its own thing more than the actual product itself in some ways. That being said, we got to start somewhere, gentlemen. So, Mags, I'll start with you first here. What does AEW mean to you?
Okay. Well, as everybody on this show knows, and everybody who listens will probably know, I took a decade-long sabbatical from wrestling. It was just something that wasn't interesting me at the time. It wasn't kind of like appealing to me, and I got dragged back in about 2016 with the whole rise of Kenny Omega and this quadrilogy with Kazuchika Okada. So. All Elite Wrestling for me was part of that, because one of the main stars of it is who dragged me back into watching wrestling again. So seeing this company come from essentially a bet between a wrestling journalist and some kind of released WWE talent who wanted to kind of forge his own path to where it is now, essentially the second biggest company in the world. It's amazing. I haven't been the kind of the all singing, all dancing stan of AEW. Whenever there's issues, I call them out just as much as whenever I've loved something, I'm happy to sing it from the rooftops. But it's the first real wrestling company that I've watched grow from a seed to where it is now. So yeah, it's really important for me.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who certainly do share that sentiment. I know that probably, I don't want to assume that all of us here on the dais, are totally non-biased and don't have a favorite one way or the other, but I know that all four of us here in this chat are fans of pro wrestling first and foremost, no matter what. And I think that's really kind of maybe helped birth AEW in a lot of ways. I mean, would you agree with that, Conrad?
I think so. All Elite Wrestling kind of changed how I was producing content at the time. I was already doing a lot of this stuff, but I was my focus was different. I wasn't into the podcasting element. I was doing YouTube, and I was getting sick of it was the mundane Monday Night Raw reviews, and I'm like, here we go again. And I felt myself turning into insert whatever YouTuber's name that likes to scream into the microphone about Monday Night Raw. I was turning into that, and I was not enjoying it. That's right, Warren. He raised his hand. We were I just turned into that, and I was like, there's nothing happening. I don't know. I needed something fresh, and then I started feeling like this energy coming in from I started watching more New Japan. I got really into Lucha Underground at the time, and then all of a sudden this started to bubble up, and I'm like, something's going on here. Something feels very weird. You start hearing all the rumors of the contracts coming up, and you're like, what's going on? And it all just happened like perfect timing, and everything came full circle. I'm sure we'll get into more of it, but it was just the right time, I think, for wrestling fans to get something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And Warren, again, kind of the same question along the same lines. I mean, AEW as a catalyst for change. I mean, how were you feeling around that time when AEW was first, I guess, burgeoning itself together?
I think there's a great way to start clearing my throat. Well, hello everyone, welcome to the very professional show starring Mr. Warren Hayes. I think because both Mags and Conrad made very salient points, but I think ultimately what makes AEW work, what made All In work, was a fatigue in regards to WWE. For good or ill, the stuff they put out is still the big leagues. It's the major leagues. But at some point, it is always the same flavor. And sometimes you do want a little variety. Baskin Robbins has 32, not 2. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing. So like Conrad said, you could feel, people tuning into New Japan more. You could, Lucha Underground. You were, a lot of the indies, a certain promotion called Game Changer Wrestling, was starting to do stuff out in Jersey. So there was a feeling, a need for variety from fans. which was ultimately proven at the All In show. But this is what AEW provides. This is what it does. It is the first truly national promotion to have a weekly televised show on cable to provide a true alternative to WWE. Easily accessed, stars, high production value. Of course, you've got Impact's been there for a while. Sure, of course. But I'm talking like on the scale. I'm talking on a level of scale. And that, to me, I think what makes it most interesting is that it legitimizes wrestling as a form of entertainment which is sought for. Maybe not as much as a certain era, but still something that people will tune into and people want more of, outside of just like what they get on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah, I mean that's very well said for sure. Gentlemen, our story really begins, as all good stories do, on Twitter. When in May of 2017, someone had hit up Dave Meltzer, pro wrestling journalist and historian. That
never heard of him.
Nobody knows him. Okay, Uncle Dave got hit up on Twitter with a question, a very poignant question. Basically along the lines of, would our Ring of Honor, ROH, ever sell out a 10,000 seat venue? Could they sell over 10,000 seats? To which his response was, not anytime soon. Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, to their credit, decided they would take up Uncle Dave on that bet. And, it kind of boomed from there. The idea for Ring of Honor to put together this show of its own doing, promoted by Cody and the Young Bucks. They had these partnerships in place with, New Japan, of course, but I mean, there's always been a long-standing history with them and Impact talent, them and talent from PWG. A lot of them all kind of run in the same circles, and soon you got something really organic here, Mags. I will note, I do tend to believe in a slightly different narrative, and I think you touched on it here earlier, and so I want to kind of go back and readdress this. You were talking about how New Japan had been, really kind of exceeding, and that it was the Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada match that really dragged you back into wrestling full force. Would there be an AEW without that match? That's something that I've always wondered myself. Do you believe that AEW would have still been a thing without Kenny Omega or Kazuchika Okada and the impact that New Japan made?
That's actually a really tough question, because if you look at what the catalyst was for All In, it wasn't particularly Kenny Omega that was at front and center. It was Cody Rhodes. It was Cody who was using his reputation as a WWE superstar, then going on to remake his name almost on the Indies, and then into New Japan and Ring of Honor. So I think the onus was really on Cody, and for me, that's a big risk for somebody like Cody, especially with the lineage that he had with his father, and obviously his brother, who was a huge superstar. For him to feel that need to break out the shadow and take this risk, because at the end of the day, booking a 10,000 seat arena and packing it out with a star-studded show, that's a lot of hope on essentially some internet buzz. Mm-hmm. Looking back now, it absolutely worked, but at that time there must have been a lot of trepidation. Was that built on the back of Kenny and Kazuchika's amazing matches? Slightly, but I don't think that was the only factor. I think the Bucks especially were so good at using that social media presence to increase their kind of like foothold in wrestling. So whilst it was a big factor, I don't think it would have maybe curtailed the whole event I still think that we could have got to where we got to with All In if Kenny had not even had those matches with Kazuchika. If he'd have broke away from New Japan and came across a lot sooner, I think we could have still potentially had All In and AEW in the form that it's in now.
Well, and that definitely leads us to another point in, obviously the Young Bucks and Cody helped doing the self-promotion, but there was also the whole YouTube series of Being the Elite, which was a vital part of getting the word out and helping foster this community for people to go and see the show. Conrad, with you being on YouTube and that being your specialty, your bread and butter for so long, talk to me about the importance of what Being the Elite meant to getting us to All In.
I'm going to piggyback off of Mags first. I think that there are a lot of players in the game, like Mag said, that get forgotten about with this. It wasn't just Okada and Omega, like he said. It wasn't even just Cody. I think we have to give respects to the invisible hand. I know nobody's going to want to say it, but I think Don Callis plays a big part in this as well. When he was able to get Chris Jericho while he was still working for the WWE. That's unheard of these days, that Vince was like, yeah, go ahead, go do it. You signed off on the wrong thing, buddy, because you just let somebody go have fun, and now they're like, this would be fun to do all the time. And Jericho's the other person I wanted to name. Chris Jericho has a big, big influence on a lot of this, and I think he showed it doesn't matter how big a star you are, you still would love to be able to do what you want to do, whether it's being a rock star, anything else. He has his own podcast series, and that leads us, I guess, back to BTE. BTE was a tremendous device that was picking up steam. At the time, Ring of Honor was kind of super popular. We would always get the Global War show locally here in Buffalo, New York, and I would always go because I'm like, dude, this is going to be a great match. Derek, who I do my podcast with, ignore all of his opinions if you ever hear them. But for this one thing, I like it because he came out with me to a Ring of Honor show, and he was like, oh, dude, I haven't watched wrestling in so long. He was like, I don't even know what it's like anymore. He was like an Attitude Era guy. And during all of this, he got to see the Young Bucks. And instantly he was like, oh, the Super Kick dudes, they're so sweet. And the see ya. Like he learned all this stuff instantly like that. And he was like, dude, we got to go see one of those shows again. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, those dudes are sweet. And he started watching Being the Elite. He was like, this is funny. I like this stuff. They're taking little shots at Vince and whatever it may be. And it kind of changed the whole game. This show was really built all off of social media's back. Some of the matches were just on social media. One in particular that we'll probably end up talking about, it was entirely on social media. That is crazy to me. And people were popping for things, a 10,000-seat arena popping for things that were just on social media. I think it's foretelling of where wrestling is going. And I think that sparked a light bulb in some other people's minds.
And Conrad is absolutely right, and I think we cannot underscore how crucial Being the Elite has been to the creation of AEW. Because look, Harold Mage, how do you pronounce it? Is it Mage? The former head of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mage, I think.
Mage, just simply like that.
I've heard it both ways.
Look, Harold. Yeah. Okay, Harry. Basically, he didn't end up having the best relationship with the Elite towards the end for a bunch of reasons. And I'm convinced that one of them is because the guys were shooting stuff while they were on tour in New Japan and putting it on YouTube without any foresight from New Japan. They were building their own thing on the side to a point where they broke off from the Elite and not the Elite from Bullet Club. They created the Bullet Club Elite, and that created frictions, like legit frictions on the inside. Tama Tonga is clearly, the best example of a guy who was like, what are these guys going to do over here? They're not real Bullet Club. We started getting the firing squad and all of that. You knew that there was something legit in this heat that they were creating. AEW would not have happened without Being the Elite. And Being the Elite is a concerted effort of Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody. Just as simple as that. because when they come to North America, they do BTE stuff with the North American indie guys. Like that was it. And the North American indie guys, they wanted to be on BTE because they know they'd get great exposure out of it. It's so and that's the thing that followed AEW right into its creation. AEW has always been a grassroots thing. It's always been connecting with the fans first. It's always been their thing. So I when people freak out because Tony Khan is on Twitter responding to fans and they're like, he's the CEO. Jesus, this is their MO. This is how the company was built. So it makes it even wilder to me when you think that the Young Bucks had to disappear off of Twitter for a while, because I'm like, because it was kind of counter to their strategy, to how they position and create themselves. And it was the natural thing to do, because on one hand you have this corporation that in the minds of fans, I'm not calling this as fact or whatever, but in the minds of fans, you have this one corporation that's like, we don't listen to you. You're going to like Roman Reigns. It's like you're going to like it. And on the other hand, you have these guys saying, we're listening to y'all. What do you guys want to see? We're fun. We're hip. We got our fingers on the pulse, and we'll prove it to you. And they did.
Well, and to piggyback off that too, WWE, in a lot of senses, not only would go as far as saying we're not listening, they would straight up lie to you in some cases and say, hey, we're gonna listen. What do you guys want? And yet nothing would ever like the changes would be very minimal at best.
We'd get Lacey Evans.
or King Corbin or something like that. A lot of this pay-per-view was not really tremendously built off of storylines. A lot of the matches were kind of ruled out, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. Yeah, I want to see this match. Oh, I'm going to see, Rey Mysterio on the card with a super lucha team, a lucha dream team of sorts, teaming against the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi. That sounds great. I'm all about it. But the one story that really kind of just organically came together with this show was Cody challenging for the NWA title against Nick Aldis. And that in and of itself is vitally important too, because NWA was also on the come up as well. They have been kind of wallowing in obscurity for a long time. Smashing Pumpkins singer and guitarist Billy Corgan buys the company. He tries to put money into it. And Nick Aldis really kind of puts that championship and NWA's history on his back, and just kind of carries it to this level, to where it's going to be headlining a major pay-per-view, a major non-WWE pay-per-view for the first time ever, basically.
Absolutely. And I think Nick Aldis is so criminally underappreciated in wrestling for, like I said, carrying the hopes and dreams of a company that has got the longest lineage in wrestling. For him, and this was coming off the was it 30 defenses in 60 days run that he did with the 10 pounds of gold, and Cody obviously wanted to link him with the lineage of his father. I mean, his dad was massive in the NWA, and if he can kind of emulate a little bit of that, it really adds to Cody's legacy. So there was an emotion there, and I remember at the time there'd been a lot of backlash. This was kind of like the almost the start of LOL Cody wins booking for the boys. And I remember at the time being fiercely defensive of Cody and saying, no, he needs to win this match. He needs to be in this match because of what it means to him. The whole image of his dad holding the title up, and then it faded into Cody doing pretty much the same pose on the top turnbuckle. It needed to happen, and it was such a well-told story. And I've never been a massive Cody fan. I've always appreciated his work ethic, but for me, he's never been someone who stood out. And this was the first time I got him. I got his passion for wrestling. I got that he wanted to build a legacy And then he went on and did even better things with the match with his brother, and then building up the company. I fell off a little bit because of some of the kind of like every big guy loses to Cody on their entrance into AEW, but you can't blame the guy for having that balls to say, I don't want that guaranteed WWE money. I want to go out and carve my own path. And he found a group that were willing to be a part of that story. And he's created an amazing company in 2 years. It's mind-blowing what he and his team have done.
Mm-hmm. We've also got to make sure to underscore the fact that he's got football money behind him, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he could not have done this with his own wallet. I understand that.
And he could, but I'd even take it a step further. I don't think AEW could not exist if it wasn't football cash, if it wasn't an NFL owner's money investing in this. Because remember Panda Energy? You remember Dixie Carter? There you go. They would not be on bloody TNT if it wasn't for the fact that they had the Jacksonville Jaguar Con's money. That sounds the Jacksonville Jaguar Con, right?
It's like Fulham FC's Con as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for real, they needed that type of backing for this project to hit the height. It hasn't even been a full 2 years. No, it has been. No, I'm confused. It's going to be 2 years this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been a full 2 years. Geez, 2020 completely screws up your perception of time. But it hasn't been. And look at what they're doing. They've got spin-offs. TBS is saying, Warner's saying, give us another show. We'll put it on the other network, and we'll give you super cards. And I mean, it hasn't even been 2 years. Mm-hmm. None of this would be happening if they didn't have that kind of money.
A plus $100 million TV deal that they've re-signed multiple times in that 2 years.
It's wild.
Multiple times. A games division.
Listen, that's a big deal, that all that money he spent. And like you said, the con money is long. But I want to bring it back to a point Mags had brought up before. When you look at, we talked about BTE, the NWA in that 10 pounds of gold series really was well put together. Mm-hmm. And Cody being the perfect person in that match, you had the legacy, the pictures, the videos of stuff from his father. And I remember they did like a really long presentation before this match happened where it was like a big YouTube video. And I love the video packages. I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It gets me invested in the story. And Cody's great at doing that in the ring. And I also want to throw in this little side mention. We talked about all the other stuff that they had going on amongst the Elite and the Bullet Club. These guys were in Hot Topic too. Yeah, that's a big clothing line. Like, you just don't have wrestling shirts hanging around. And you would just go in the mall and you're like, dude, did I just see a Bullet Club shirt in the mall? Like, that's crazy. And it was one of the, I'm telling you, one of the hottest shirts at the time were the Bullet Club shirts. Mm-hmm. Like, I just used to see them everywhere.
I went to Disney, and there was a dude walking around with a Bullet Club shirt. I was like, "Whoa, all right." Well, that,
and it's just one of those things you just know. You're just like,
yeah, you throw up the too sweet.
I was too sweeted in an airport in Turkey because not even a joke. I had a Bullet Club shirt on, and I was too sweet in a queue in a Turkish airport. That's how far the reach of Bullet Club and AEW was getting.
That's yeah. Hey,
I'm glad you specified you were in an airport when that happened.
Just randomly, just in the middle of Turkey.
Yeah, I was ordering a falafel. I threw up the too sweet.
The guy said you don't even have to pay for the falafel.
No. Gentlemen, let's dig into this card here, because this card's actually quite dense, and for all intents and purposes, the show in its entirety is quite critically acclaimed. We had two matches on the undercard, the pre-show. SoCal Uncensored, which would have been Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky teaming up to face the Briscoe brothers of Ring of Honor fame. They had a nice little tag match there. Went about 12 and a half minutes. And then we also had the 19-person over-budget Battle Royal, which the winner would go on to face Jay Lethal later on in the evening for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Yeah, I mean, gentlemen, this was the original buy-in here to getting yourself into All In. I was watching the show very recently, and I was still put aback as to how over Flip Gordon was at the time.
Right.
So talk to me, Conrad. Talk to me about Flip Gordon and just the magnetism about Flip Gordon at the time.
Well, Flip Gordon was trying to get on the show. That was the whole gimmick on BT. They're like, we're not booking Flip. No, we can't. We can't have this. And it was just the perfect setup. Like, going into it, you knew, like, okay, Flip Gordon's got to be on this show some way, somehow. How are they going to fit him in? And I thought what they did in the Battle Royal, genius. And I love that so for every protagonist, you have to have the antagonist. Bully Ray was absolutely, maybe he was on the show a little too much just for some people's taste, but Bully Ray is the absolute biggest jerk that fans would want to boo. Hence what's going on now. Eddie Kingston and Bully Ray is a work. If you hear this after the fact, I'm telling you now, this is going to lead to a match when they get to New York. But I really, really liked how they pushed him in this one. Just to be, he was mean to Marco even when you first see Marco. I didn't know anything about some of the guys on this card like I know them now. Marco sounded like, who is this dude? I'm like, why is Bully Ray doing this? And I felt bad. Like, there was just pity for this man as soon as I saw it. And Flip Gordon just comes in to save the day. It was just perfect. I love how they did it. It was a great build-up. And I believe that the winner got a Ring of Honor title shot, wasn't it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, against Jay Lethal.
But I'm with Conrad. You know, you discover a bunch of guys here, and I distinctly remember watching Marco Stunt hit the ring, and I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? They're letting one of the guys' kids in the match. Isn't that nice? That's literally what I thought. But it's crazy. Look at where we are now, 2 years later, and look at Flip now. Like Flip has lost like this magic that we had about him, and he's not the same guy at all. He's not even half as over as he was. It's crazy how just this short span of time, how everything has changed. It really makes you wonder what happened behind the scenes, because they completely flipped on Flip. You know, they had him in their intro. Yeah. They had book Flip. You know, they had that in their their 8-bit intro, 16-bit intro for being the elite for the longest time, and then now, nope, persona non grata. It's really weird.
Yeah, he was essentially an unofficial member of the elite for a long time. I mean, they used to have a section, Marty and Flip do Japan. Which was all about Flip, and then they had Brandy kind of championing him in all the way through this event. And yeah, it's really weird how far his star has fallen.
I'd really love to know what happened. I'd really probably in 30 years we'll get a Flip Gordon shoot interview somewhere. It's like, and then he'll spill the beans.
We'll get it on Bell to Bells.
There you go.
Unless he gets a sex change, because we talk about women on Bell to Bells. What are you talking about?
I just tried to strong arm a link in.
I appreciate the plug, though. BellToBells.com.
And you know what? That'll lead me into Jordan Grace, who I thought definitely had her breakout moment in this, too. Jordan Grace of Impact fame now. I thought she really delivered in this Battle Royal. Like, she was I thought she could have won. Truthfully, at the end, I loved it. I thought she was great in this.
Yeah, I mean, we had a bunch of names in here. We had Moose, Brandon Cutler, Chucky T, Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero, Cheeseburger. I don't know if you guys remember Cheeseburger. He was there. The Hurricane, Ethan Page, Tommy Dreamer, Jimmy Jacobs, Punishment Martinez, Austin Gunn and Billy Gunn, Marco Stunt, Brian Cage, of course, Jordan Grace, Colt Cabana, and Bully Ray. I mean, probably one of the better battle royales that you'll see ever. in professional wrestling. Warren, I'm going to go back to you here because we were talking about how Flip Gordon, he hit these highs and then he kind of faded away a little bit. Let's talk about a guy who opened the show and instantly was a star, I would say. Let's talk about MJF, who was relatively unknown on a national stage until this event.
Yeah, and this was another major discovery, I think, for a lot of wrestling fans. And he's been the complete opposite, right? He comes in with, I wouldn't say without any buzz, but not as much as Flip. Like, if you just want to draw comparisons, not quite as within the vernacular, within the not the vernacular, but in the mind space of wrestling fans, as Flip was. He comes in, does it, and has this fantastic heel gimmick, doesn't care, you completely buy into the fact that this guy is a complete asshat. And ever since then, it's just been rising star. And he's become, I know this is a word that gets thrown around a lot in AEW, but he's become undeniable as far as a future guy who will carry the business. He's one of them. He's absolutely one of them. And it's crazy. He loses to Matt Cross in here, which is unthinkable again in these days where he's super protected with reason. I'm not saying it's not a slight, it's just, it's wild again when you consider the trajectories, but it was a huge coming out moment for MJF. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I was listening back to my my review for this. I actually did a review. Number one, it sucked. I was just like, oh man, what a rookie. Some of the mistakes I was making on there. And when I was going back, I had no clue who MJF was. I was like, I really like that guy, though. I'm like, there's something there to him. And then I was more like, oh, Son of Havoc was great in this match, though. He was hitting all his spots. He did this, he did that. And Warren wonders what happened with Flip Gordon. I'm always going to wonder, why was Matt Cross not signed? He seems like a nice guy. You never hear really anything bad about him. And then all of a sudden, he just was never really, picked up again or really saw. I mean, he was in NWA for a little bit, and I think he's in MLW now. And I was like, man, I can't believe no one picked this guy up. I always thought he was great from the Tough Enough days, even.
Yeah, and this result on essentially the first match of the main card, it kind of look, when you look back at it now, it says that maybe the whole kind of a pathway to where AEW wasn't fully set in stone, because as Warren said, MJF now is protected, arguably the most protected wrestler in AEW right now, and he's losing on the opening bout of the first pay-per-view. So that to me says they didn't have a plan in stone, that maybe the idea for AEW came off the back of this rather than this being the genesis of AEW.
I think this was the proof of concept, right? This was your minimal viable product where you put out, and then you go see a Tony Khan and you say, let's call your dad and see if he has money. Look at what I can do with social media, just social media, choice wrestlers, smart booking. I can pack a 10,000 person arena. Imagine what we can do with TV, right? For sure. This was an indie super show. This is what it was, and it was an independent wrestling super show. AEW was was a twinkle in maybe the Bucks and Cody's eye at this point, but no one else ever thought that it would lead directly into the creation of a new promotion.
Oh, for sure. The following match on the card would be Christopher Daniels taking on actor Stephen Amell from Green Arrow fame. Stephen Amell, of course, being a friend of the Elite. For an actor, he actually put in a decent enough performance here. Christopher Daniels obviously carried him all the way through appropriately enough, but decent enough match, I felt. It was fun. It was fine.
I think it's hard to kind of just brush over the fact that Stephen Amell was on this show. Like we keep saying, this was an indie show. This was booked on the back of social media, and they had a legitimate TV star in one of the matches. It's massive. That's a massive, massive thing for essentially a non-company to be able to pull off. It's mind-blowing when you actually look at it and think, how did this indie show get Stephen Amell to be part of a match and to go through tables? It's mental.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite chants in this. It was the broken arrow. And they were doing I was just like, that's so great. I love wrestling fans. Yeah, this was really fun. And big shout out to Jerry Lynn when he was bowing up to people. I was like, go ahead, Jerry, package pile drive somebody. That's what I want to see. As a fair, unbiased referee, there's about to be a double count out. He's like, you know what? No, we're not doing that. Get in the ring, both of you. Get in there. Fun. This match was fun to me. I don't know. I really liked this one. When I went back and looked at it, I was like, this was a good match.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? I really actually got the same kind of vibes off of the next match, which would be the four-corner survival match. Tessa Blanchard, Dr. Britt Baker, Chelsea Green, and Madison Rayne. I'd heard of Tessa Blanchard, of course. I've heard of Madison Rayne. But Britt Baker, I had not heard of, and now she's the women's face of AEW. She's the current women's champion, and I mean, obviously Chelsea Green went on to kind of be on WWE for a little bit.
Essentially, on the back of this performance, she was pretty much booked because for me, she was the star of this match. Obviously, Britt has gone on to be huge, but for me, I thought Chelsea was brilliant in this match. Tessa was Tessa. Tessa's always going to have a good match, whether you like her for the controversy around her or not. She's always going to be a really good wrestler. Like you, I didn't really know a lot about Britt Baker, but what I did like was the fact she came out to Adam Cole's music. That was that was such a great touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this really, kind of as we noted with, the Matt Cross and MJF match, this was really the baseline, the pace setter for what women's wrestling could be in AEW. Now, of course, they would not go on to get Madison Rayne or Tessa Blanchard or Chelsea Green, but this showed that they were still dedicated to doing women's wrestling and highlighting women's wrestling in a very competitive way here on this show, not just because it's Impact or it's Ring of Honor. I mean, they really went into this match wanting to highlight how good women's wrestling can be outside of the WWE sphere of things.
Yeah, kind of like how the recent comments of Triple H kind of sparked some anger from people outside the WWE. I think it was kind of the same thing back then. It was all about the four horsewomen. And I think women's wrestling as a whole was just in the spotlight at that time. And there were just people like, hey, I'm a name too. Come watch me wrestle. And I think all four of the ladies did a good job with that. It was perfect. I even like how they had the two guest panelists. I believe it was Mandy Leone and I almost called her Emma. Good Lord. Tennille Dashwood.
Yes.
They were both on commentary there. And it had to be awkward because Tennille Dashwood was dating Zack Ryder right before, and then you see Chelsea Green in the ring doing the woo woo. I was just like, this is kind of weird. This is kind of weird. I know it's still wrestling, and now that's so far removed from people's minds. But at the time, I was just like, so awkward for them to do that. But it was all fun though. I like this match too. This was another one.
It's wild how much I think the main standout here is. Well, it's two things. First of all, Madison Rayne was always awful. And that Britt Baker, how much Britt Baker has evolved since this time. She's evolved in what? Madison Rayne stinks. I never liked her. She's terrible. You guys are laughing as if I just created some kind of controversy. Christ.
Professionalism for me. Excuse me.
She stinks. What are you gonna do?
She was the name, though. She was the feature.
She was the name. No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm not taking away what she accomplished. You know, that mean, look, the woman was able to make a business out of make a living out of the wrestling business. Kudos to her, because she's got a comprehension of it that I clearly don't, because I would have never booked her in the first place. Now, that being said, Britt Baker, though, as far as we're going, Britt Baker is a complete turnaround, a complete 180 change, and not only because of the personality, but her in-ring too has tightened up so much. She's such a good wrestler now. She always had the charisma. She had those intangibles. She had that
je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, a little those good reflexes when it comes to combat sports. Where you could tell that she got it and she was a natural at it. And now it's just become so refined and great. That's a complete. That's also a great story from that point on to where she is today as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember being at the show in the Cedar Park Center, the HEB Center, when they came to Austin, and I mean, it literally, she dissed Whataburger, and people just lost their minds. They've lost their minds. It was the worst heat that I've ever heard from a live crowd ever. And it was like, man, she got it. She knew exactly what to do. So yeah, she's awesome. Britt Baker. Really round of applause for Britt Baker. Really next match on the card. Weird placement. Really weird placement. It kind of blows my mind that the Cody and Nick Aldis match is just smack dab right in the middle of the card here.
Nick Aldis must have hated that.
Oh.
Yeah. He must have absolutely loathed that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still can't figure it out why this was here. But here we are. Cody, of course, was walked out by his fight camp, as they said on commentary, which consisted of Brandy Rhodes, her brother, her dad, Diamond Dallas Page, Glacier, and Tommy Dreamer. What a fight!
Pharaoh. Don't forget Pharaoh.
And Pharaoh. I can't imagine what that fight camp must have been like. But Nick Aldis would come out afterwards, along with Jeff Jarrett, Samuel Shaw, Sean Daivari, and Tim Storm. This match would be for the NWA title. It was originally scheduled to be almost half an hour, and we got 22 minutes of this fine wrestling match. Mags, what did you make of the ever-hyped main event in the middle of the card here?
Yeah, this match had to live up to the build that we'd had, and it just about did. And the reason why it nearly failed was the ridiculous amount of time it took Cody Rhodes to do a blade job. It took at least 5 minutes for him. I mean, we had to get to the point where DDP came out and gave a diamond cutter to Daivari just so he had time to blade. But aside from that, it had all the emotion that it needed to have. It was a classic old school style wrestling match. We got submission attempts. We just got all the things that made NWA wrestling so damn good. And then we get the emotion of Cody winning. It had to happen. It wouldn't have worked otherwise for me. I think it would have deflated the rest of the show. But getting that image of Cody living up to his dad's legacy, carrying on that name of the Rhodes family, yeah, it was brilliant. It's just it needs to learn how to blade a little bit better.
Oh, and he would go on to do so very much on a regular basis. Conrad, did this match live up to the hype for you?
Absolutely. I had this as probably the top match of the night. You could probably interchange it with another one that we haven't gotten to yet. But I really, really like this match for the build. everything that they had just going into it. You could feel the emotion. And I know that you guys are bringing up how I thought this would have main evented, like you guys were saying before. But I think if you look at it now, I think they're happy they didn't main event, because I think the match would have been completely ruined if they would have. When you see this match, it has all of the NWA intangibles like Mags was bringing up. I love the fact that it was you saw the finisher of Nick Aldis hit and Brandy gets involved. And then you saw Cody hit the crossroads. There was all the shenanigans. I call it the Cody Rhodes shenanigans in all of his matches. You got to have the hoopla and you're in the way. Oh, you went down. Oh, what's going to happen with this? And then they both kicked out of each other's finishers. And how do you end the match? There's only one way. No finisher. The classic SummerSlam 92 finish where it's like, oh, go for the sunset flip. Cody pins the legs. There's no way you should get out of that. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. And I always call those the Cody finishes. And I love that now that that's in like AEW matches all the time, when Cody wins with the figure 4 and it's like you never saw the match ending, because now it makes me not want to take my eyes off the screen, because I'm like, hold on, someone might win off a DDT. Let me make sure I'm paying attention versus a finisher. And I love that.
I love it so much, Conrad. I love the idea of matches finishing with just someone beating the shit out of another guy. Like Walter did. No, but like Walter did to Tommaso Ciampa a couple of takeovers ago. And people are like, what? The match is finished? Christ! It's Walter clubbing you down.
Beat him with a chop.
Of course it's going to knock you out. What are you talking about? No, I love this idea of matches just being able to end without a signature move completing it. You know, Moxley, I think for the longest time didn't win a match using the paradigm shift, right? He had a long stretch of matches that he was winning without having to use the move to finish. I love that stuff. And you're right, you know, it's like there's an old school aspect to it, you know, it's just it sort of helps break the mold that we've been in for the past 20 years. Where it's like, hit the finisher, match is done. No, there can be something else to it. And you don't necessarily have to kick out of finishers all the time either, but, you know, it's just, finishes with the figure 4 instead of the crossroads. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. We're going to quickly go through the next match here. This is not one that would probably be best remembered for AEW lore for obvious reasons, mostly because the bulk of the story actually has to do with Joey Ryan, who I should not tell you why. We don't need to spend much time on this. But Hangman Page versus Joey Janela actually have a very good Chicago street fight. This is right up Joey Janela's alley, and he makes Hangman Page look like $1 million throughout the process, which I thought was really nice. It
was my match of the night.
Really?
Oh, I love this match. I thought it was fantastic. I don't think like as much as the Cody Nick Aldis thing was a lot of fun, especially in. I think there was a lot of its charm that laid in the throwback aspect of it, which was super refreshing. Don't get me wrong. I really, really liked it. Paige and Janela just and Penelope, she was bumping too. I mean, everyone was just taking bumps the whole way through. I loved this match. Wasn't this they had the Cracker Barrels? Wasn't it that they were? This was. And I had never heard. I'm Canadian. I had never heard of Cracker Barrel. Like Cracker Barrel to me it's a brand of Kraft cheese. You know. So it's like, why does Kraft? What it's Kraft sponsoring? Like I didn't. Anyway, I'm digressing, of course. But I thought this match was great, and it was a standout moment for Paige. Janela Janela was Janela. It was fantastic. I love this match.
The Cracker Barrel, for those unaware, is a Southern breakfast food store. So you could get pancakes and biscuits and
I've had some since visiting the U.S.
You visited, okay?
And well, when I was visiting my fiance Kristen, shout out belltobells.com, and I told her, it's like, I'm going to visit you, but we're planning a trip to Cracker Barrel because there's no Cracker Barrel in her immediate area, so we had to drive 2 hours to go to a Cracker Barrel.
Wow.
I was not disappointed.
It's good.
God, I ate so fucking much.
Oh, it's great.
I can even one-up that story because Cracker Barrel sent me a baseball cap, even though I've never been to a Cracker Barrel. and I also live thousands and thousands of miles away from one.
Yeah, it's that hospitality. Yeah,
I'm going to one down this story, and I live in the U.S., and I have never been to Cracker Barrel, ever. And I'm not the lightest man here, so let's just say that. I'm like, that's what it is. So one day, I'll have to go in there, I guess.
It's good. I definitely recommend it. But yeah, this was a good match. Certainly marred by the after effects of it, with Joey Ryan and obviously hashtag speaking out. And yeah, if you want to look into that, be my guest. I'm not in the mood to talk about that because that's not what this episode's about. We've got Jay Lethal defending the title on the next match here against Flip Gordon, who competed earlier in the evening in the over-budget Battle Royal. We got a little bit of a surprise, though, because before the match went down, we actually saw Jay Lethal turn back into his Macho Man gimmick that he had, Impact fame. Conrad, I'll go over to you first. This match was actually pretty entertaining here between Flip Gordon and Jay Lethal, as Flip had been trying to get a title shot for quite some time.
Yeah. Flip Gordon finally gets the opportunity he wanted. He's on the show, and he's presented on the big stage. I thought that this was really fun for him to get to do it. I like the fact that Jay Lethal didn't come out as like the serious champion. I think we had a lot of that, and this was kind of fun, if that makes more sense. Like, I think if he came out all serious, like, oh, it's another title match, just like the NWA one. This is all serious and no time for fun. But Jay Lethal came out and was like, yeah, this is comedy a little bit. Let's have some fun with the Black Machismo gimmick, and, you know, you twirl the arms around, and it just made it a little bit more lighthearted, I guess we'll say. And it helped with the pacing, I think, of the show, because sometimes you don't want to have too many of the same kinds of matches back to back. So I thought this was great what both competitors did in this.
Well, and you had Lanny Poffo too, which I thought was a really nice touch as well.
Conrad nailed it. This was a palate cleanser that was in exactly the right place where it needed to be. It was that fun comedy match. We got the Black Machismo stuff. We've got Flip doing his never-ending kip-ups. It was a well-placed and entertaining match.
Next match here on the card, Warren, I'm going to go to you first. This one here is what I would consider the best match on the card. By just that much, though. A super match between the IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kenny Omega, a Canadian, against Mexico's own Pentagon Jr., who in his own right is a multi-time champion. A very big clash of styles between these two works out to be a very good match.
Who are these guys again? Never.
These are above average Mark Sanders.
Who wrestles under the name Kenny? Brutus or Carl. Kenny. It's funny. I don't have many memories of this particular match. Isn't that weird? Like when I was okay, thank you.
It is a bit weird.
when I was preparing and rereading stuff and looking over the card, I was like, because I know the guys wrestled there. I remember Kenny cutting a promo on BT, calling him, "Oh, isn't Penta that hardcore guy on Impact?" And I'm like, "What? No, what are you talking about? That's not it." Penta was one of my favorites off of Lucha Underground. But once he was off Lucha Underground, I was like, wow, okay. I think Penta's career benefited tremendously from the editing on Lucha Underground. Let's put it that way. I don't think he's a bad wrestler, but I don't think he's as good as he is in the minds of a lot of people because of how matches were put together, edited. in Lucha Underground, where he came off as a complete monster, and that was fantastic. But I remember it being a good match. Don't get me wrong, But but look, you asked me. I think when you talk about All In, I'm Hangman Page and Joey Janela. That's always what's going to come to mind. That's always the thing that's going to stick with me. But I mean, it was a big deal. You said it yourself. You had the IWGP world heavyweight champion right there on stage in North America, right? It's a huge deal. Either way you look at the time. When was the last time New Japan had done a show on North American soil? It opens so many possibilities. You're talking about forbidden doors these days. The doors that were open thanks to this match. New Japan was paying attention to this. Hell, they'd run a show with Ring of Honor afterwards. Mm-hmm. It's like this was a catalyst. This was there were so many opportunities that were created outside of AEW, of course AEW, but outside of AEW as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mags, I know that you appreciate the match as much as I do.
I think I'm kind of blessed that I didn't get into Lucha Underground when it was a thing, because I hadn't seen a lot of Penta. I'd heard of Penta, but I hadn't seen a lot of him. So seeing the whole kind of Cero Miedo stuff and the hard-hitting style, these two went out to legitimately kill each other, like really end each other's careers, and that's what I loved about it. It was so brutal, but then we get the finish. Obviously, Kenny wins, being the champion. I understand that. Then the lights go down, and you think, fucking hell, it's an indie show. They've not paid the electric bill. What's happening here? And then Jericho comes in, and we see the code breaker, and he pulls off the Penta mask, and it's just on you like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, it's brilliant. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
No, for sure. Conrad, what did this match do for you, sir?
I'm going to also overhype this one a little bit. I think I had this as the highest grade when I reviewed it. So I think that this matchup was kind of a dream match for people who did watch Lucha Underground. Yes. So Kenny Omega, the IWGP, he's king shit over here, and then you got king shit in Lucha Underground, the edited version, like Warren said. And I 100% agree with Warren with the editing. I love Pentagon because he was the guy. If he came in the ring and you were there, you were getting written off the show. You knew it. Like, your arm is getting broken.
Yeah, you're dead.
And it was just one of the best things. Like, I loved it. And then he went over to Impact, I think, for a little while at this time, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember.
Yeah, with Ray Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were over there crushing it, and I was like, dude, this is such a dream match that we're going to get to see. It was a lot of fun, and it's a match now that when you look at AEW, oh, man, we don't have anything to do next week for the show. Get one of those Death Triangle guys and put him against Kenny. It'll be fun. It'll be good. Every time. It's always good. It's always fun. Or put the Bucks in the tag match with them. And I really think that both of those guys have really been valuable to AEW, no matter what they say. Actually, both groups from Death Triangle and the Elite, like, 100%. They can always deliver a good match when you need it.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get to Ray Phoenix here just momentarily. Up next is Kazuchika Okada taking on Marty Scurll. Obviously, again, slightly controversial, but we'll I digress. We'll talk about the match here. The story leading into it is Kazuchika Okada is the best wrestler in the world. Nobody's giving Marty Scurll a chance, and yet they go, again, controversially, nearly half an hour. A lot of people said this match ran way, way, way over, considering the main event that we'll talk about here shortly. But this was a decent enough match here. I got to give Kazuchika Okada and Marty Scurll some props here as far as this match goes, Warren.
The big thing here was, look, you had Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, who were both flown in from overseas to do this match, to do this show. I mean, sorry. Even though they weren't wrestling each other, which they shouldn't have. It's a New Japan thing. They shouldn't do it anywhere else than in a New Japan ring if they were ever going to do it again. This is to the point of opportunities being created, right? Where you have your top guy in New Japan coming in, and we haven't even talked about the other top guy who wasn't even signed at the time. Like he wasn't even under contract. But you bring in your New Japan guys, and people are excited to see them, and that was part of the appeal of All In. That's why it was such a mind blowing success. I'm sorry, I'm maybe focused a little more on the business side than the match itself, but I think it ties in really, really well here. For 20 years, 2 full decades, we have been and even before that as well, you can make a proper argument. We've been told there's one way to do wrestling, and it's this way, and everyone has their own yard, and the other yards, not only do we not talk about them, we pretend they don't exist. Right? This was. I mean, I'm an old fan, so I remember supercards. I remember instances where you have partnerships where WCW would have New Japan guys come in, and I remember that era. But WWE never played that way, ever. Well, at least not since WCW passed on. So. This, I think, for a lot of fans, this was on one end, it was a revelation because we can actually do this. This is cool. We can have partnerships amongst wrestling promotions. This is neat, and a revelation. But also for some of the older fans, they're like, okay, well, this is good. This is good because there is no one company that is going to be able to compete with WWE but there is still a slice of the pie out there that is available for people to jump in on. But we're going to share this piece of the pie, and if we all work together, we'll be able to benefit more from it than if we're just still in our silos and pretending that the outside world doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. That analogy and that thought process for sure. Conrad, what do you think of this match here, Okada and Skrull? Even despite its very long length here.
All I can say is I would be pissed if I was in the main event and they did that. That's all I was thinking while watching this. I'm like, bro, did they pay for overtime on this? I'm like, as a wrestling fan, you look at the clock, you're like, they still got one more match. What are these guys doing right now? Kick out! I'm like, this is cool, but I think someone backstage is going to be pissed. And they're not going to like this. And it was a fantastic match. I really don't have too much to really say about it. Like you said in the beginning, I don't want to glorify some people in this by even mentioning their name, but it was a good match. The right guy went over, and I was happy with it from what I saw at the time.
Good deal.
I mean, to kind of echo what Conrad said, you don't bring someone of the level of Kazuchika Okada, who essentially was the best wrestler in the world at that time, and say, yeah, you're just getting 40 minutes. It's like, no, I'm not. You're telling me I'm getting 40 minutes? Hell no. I'm going half an hour, bitches. And he went half an hour, as Kazuchika Okada was going to do. So the match was decent. Again, I don't want to give much press to Okada's opponent. I know he got a lot of the flack for the time going over, but again, was he in the position where he could say to, look, Kazu, we've got to cut this short?
Kazu, my pals are running the show. The ref, or is that? I don't know if you understand English really well, but the ref just told us to go home. The ref just told.
Absolutely. Oh man. So let's get to the main event there, because boy howdy, what a match this would have been had all the cards fallen into place correctly. We were talking about dream matches before between Kenny Omega and Pentagon. We were talking about Cody and Nick Aldis. We were talking about all the potential that this card had. This match here, Kota Ibushi and the Young Bucks taking on this Lucha Libre super team of Rey Mysterio, Rey Fenix, and Bandito, who instantly became one of my favorite wrestlers after this match. For 12 minutes, this is the best 12-minute match that you can find on the planet, in my professional estimate here. But don't just take it from me. Mags, what did you think of this match?
If this could have had that extra 12 minutes that greedy Kazuchika Okada wanted, it would have been a 5-star classic. But what we got was 12 minutes of you daren't blink because you were going to miss something. You had the essentially a past, present, and future Lucha Libre team in the two Rays and Bandito, who I knew nothing about before this match, absolutely nothing, and he was an absolute star. That headstand move that he did was, oh my god, it was so damn good, and it was just a massive spot fest, which is not a detriment at all because it just worked perfectly. It was a great way to send home the fans happy. They watched the most entertaining, lightning fast 12 minutes match. The card ended with about 10 seconds of the pay-per-view to go, so they absolutely nailed it. And these all speak different languages. I mean, you're talking about 3 different languages that these guys speak, and you can legitimately hear Rey Mysterio trying to translate to make sure that Phoenix and Bandito are getting the spots in. But it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. A perfect way to end a really well done show. And it was just, I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Conrad, thoughts on the match? And as Max pointed out, Rey Mysterio, the legend, Rey Mysterio is on this card. How?
Rey Maestro. I always have to say it like Santino when I hear Rey Mysterio's name. Rey Mysterio. I think this was Cody's doing. Cody knows that Rey Mysterio kind of made him a made man in WWE, like seen as a singles competitor and taken serious when he put him over at WrestleMania 27. And I believe to this day, if Rey Mysterio's contract ever runs out and he needs somewhere to go, Cody's going to take care of him. And I think that's why he said, you know what? Main event, give it to Rey. He deserves it. And number one, badass Wolverine attire. For any X-Men fan,
that's right.
This is dope. Let me get back out of the super nerdum, back to regular nerdum here for wrestling. And I'm a nerd all the way around. But I think that you couldn't put a better group of people or a better match to go on last if you needed 12 minutes and you were like, guys, we need a bunch of spots to just do this. The Young Bucks, Rey Fenix, Rey Mysterio, all the names, it's just perfect. Like, yeah, I'll go in there. I'll do whatever I have to do. And I love the fact that Kota Ibushi was in this match as well. The free agent at the time. This dude was going everywhere and just tearing it up, and nobody could sign him. He was the Cinderella. Like, who does this glass slipper belong to? Kota, wear it, please. I want you in the Cruiserweight Classic. Nah, I'm good. Please, we'll give you the New Japan title. Not right now. I'm all right. I'll just go over here for a little bit. It was just perfect how all of it worked together. And like you said, with 10 seconds to spare, best guys to go in there and do it. They delivered, I thought, on all aspects of what they had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Warren, as Conrad just pointed out, Kota Ibushi, just the year prior, was competing in WWE in the Cruiserweight Classic, and then ends up here in this match with, again, the Young Bucks, Rey Fenix, Rey Mysterio, and Bandito. This is a mind-blowing match. So obviously you talked about Kota Ibushi. Tell me about your thoughts on him and your thoughts on this match here.
Oh, listen, Kota has lived a charmed life, right? And he's not a guy. He did his training his own way. He didn't do any of the dojo systems. Like, he just, I'll just do whatever he wants. And he's so friggin' good at. That's the thing, is like, probably at some point there's people who get pissed off at him, but he's so good at what he does. He connects so naturally with the audience. Like, he's just a guy who's naturally charismatic. I hear tell he's a terrible promo. Like, apparently, like, when he speaks, the way he delivers his lines in Japan, or when he does his promos, I shouldn't say deliver his lines, and it's not WWE, but apparently he's not a very good promo. But outside of that, like, the guy is, and he's insane. he doesn't like himself. He hates his neck. So on top of that, when you see him in this match and you hear the story, you guys remember the story that they lost Kota at the airport? You remember the story, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this is a legend. This is a legendary. So like on top of everything, on top of all these matches, on top of everyone showing up here, you've got this great meta legendary story that people are going to be talking about in 40, 50 years. The story of Kota Ibushi when he came to North America and got lost in the airport. Like it's the most Kota Ibushi thing. On top of that, the match was fantastic. And I think what we need to underscore here, circling back, Warren talks about everything except the matches, but circling back, Rey Mysterio in the match, Chris Jericho, I think it's important, again, to underscore here how important it was for the legitimacy of the show to have guys like this, WWE guys, names, not fucking Mojo Rawley. It's like I'm talking Chris Jericho. What? I mean, good for Mojo if he gets booked. I mean, no one's gonna stop the presses. It's like anyway. Two legitimate WWE superstars, guys who have careers spanning decades. I think Rey Mysterio, one of the most a true to form legend, in the term legend, not the WWE version of legend, a real legend in the business in Lucha Libre, who's on this show. Chris Jericho shows up, who is a major star still. I think that also was part of this proof of concept that Cody and the Bucks created here. It's like we can book the indie guys. They're all scratching for dates regardless, but we can also bring in some of our friends, and that's really cool too.
I absolutely agree. This match, again, is the best match under 12 minutes that you'll ever see. Definitely, if you haven't checked out this pay-per-view show, you absolutely should. I believe it's still available on Fight TV, if I'm not mistaken. So it's money well spent if you come across it when you're scrolling through. So go and check out I guess it's not AEW. It's just
not yet.
All In until they buy the tape. So definitely check that out.
For the AEW network.
Yes. Coming soon. So yeah, definitely check it out. Gentlemen, it's been an honor and a pleasure having all three of you here. Let's go home then here on this wonderful episode. First off, we'll go to Warren. Warren, where can people find more of you and your content?
Well, first of all, Tanner, thank you very much for having me on your last show. It is a truly a privilege, and was good to talk about the genesis of something as you're bowing out gracefully. There's beautiful symbolism here. Are you a poet, Tanner?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Mags won't tell you as such, but
I'd never believe what anything Mags says. There's no point in it. You can follow me on, find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. That's where all my videos send up. That's where I record my podcast live every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Please join me. It's a lot of fun. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Mr. Warren Hayes. And I'm also co-owner of belltobells.com, women's wrestling. That's what we talk about there. belltobells.com or belltobells on Twitter as well. And Tanner, enjoy your retirement.
Oh, well, thank you. It won't be a full-time retirement, but this show, absolutely.
When is it a full-time retirement in wrestling?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to come back in 2 years. I'm going to put some figure fours on some people. It's going to be great. No, but thank you, Warren, for coming on. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm so glad that you were able to make it here. Conrad, you as well. Thank you for coming on the show. Again, it's been a long time in the making, as we noted earlier. Please tell us where we can find more of your content, sir.
Not so fast. I have to thank you, first and foremost, for allowing me to come on the show. You could have picked anyone else, so I'm very grateful to be in here with this elite company right now. No pun intended. But I appreciate that, and I do appreciate the times. I listen to your podcast, all of you guys actually, but I listen to yours often back in the day when you guys were doing Headlock Talk, and I always loved the hot takes and everything else that you guys did. So really good stuff, and it was an honor to work with you when we were doing Brainbuster Radio and all that stuff together too. You guys can just type in Everything Pro Wrestling. You guys can find me on YouTube. I also have a podcast. Type in Everything Pro Wrestling on all your podcast platforms. Hit subscribe. Show me some love. Kick it off to Magsy, man. I got nothing to say but thanks. And I know that we're going to see the Michael Jordan, he'll come up with some cryptic tweet or I'm back next week. And I'm here before it happens. So and I'll listen no matter what. So thank you, Tanner.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Like I said, this is years in the making, getting us together onto a show, and to have it be on the last one, it means the world. And I couldn't thank the two of you enough. Mags, I'm seeing you this weekend. Where can people find more of you and your content?
Again, I'm gonna follow my illustrious co-guests and thank you for giving this opportunity. We've been friends for a long while now, and it's always a pleasure to create content with you. I also want to kind of, whilst I'm here, I'm gonna go into the old Magsy gimmick of putting people over. Warren and Conrad are two people who I've looked up to in terms of content creation since day one. I reached out to both guys when I was even formulating the idea of coming out with my own content, and they were both gracious with their time and their support. And to see where they've come and where I want to be as a creator, they are forever a massive, massive inspiration to us. In terms of my content, I am on every single podcast that there's ever been, even podcasts that are not even out yet. I've been on them podcasts already. But yeah, I mainly focus on MMA and football, and I throw in a little bit of wrestling, but you can find all my content on my Twitter feed at PodfatherMags.
Absolutely. Well, and that really is full circle right there, because you're drawing inspiration from Warren and Conrad. I kind of drew a little bit of inspiration from all three of you. You and I do it.
May the Lord have mercy on your soul.
So awesome. The show ran a little bit long, and I do apologize to the three of you guys. But
goddamn Kazuchika Carter's fault again.
I blame Kazu.
Yeah, we really ran long on that segment. But no, in all seriousness, it's been an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to work with all three of you, and to each and every person who's ever been on Headlock Talk, to anybody who's listened to Headlock Talk, to anybody who's given me a like or a retweet on Twitter from that account. I sincerely appreciate you. I appreciate my co-host, Steven, who unfortunately was not able to make this series of episodes, but I thank him nonetheless. I hope you're doing well out there if you're listening to this episode. And you guys take care. You can find more of my stuff every week with Mags on A Change in Attitude, or over on Radio Techers, where we talk about proper football going on in the world right now. As of the time of this episode, it's actually the semifinals of the Euro 2020 Cup, and we'll be talking about the Premier League very, very soon. But until next time, whenever that may be, we thank you to whoever you are, wherever you are, for listening, and have yourselves a great rest of your day. Bye-bye!